Next item is letter number 10, dated the 22nd of January, from Mr. Michael Labonte, re a request to address City Council regarding Bill C-45. Councillor Boyle.
I'll move that Mr. Michel Labonte be allowed to address members of City Council regarding Bill C-45.
Thank you. Those in favor? That's carried. Mr. Labonte, if you'll go to the podium and please state your name for the record, and you have 10 minutes to present.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor, for allowing me to speak. My name is Michel Labonte. I'm here because I'm very concerned about the way Mr. Stephen Harper is treating our First Nation people and how he's dealing with our environment. There are many new bills that were passed lately, and many aspects of those bills does affect the life of our First Nation people and affect their environment as well as ours. Unfortunately, the First Nation were not consulted at all. Their treaty rights stipulate that First Nation people need to be consulted and need to agree to any change in the law when it affects them. Even the United Nations Declaration on the Right of Indigenous People clearly states the same thing. Mr. Harper should respect those laws, and considering that we have 74 Indigenous reserves here in Saskatchewan, Mr. Brad Wall should make sure that those Indigenous rights are well respected. We cannot keep mistreating our First Nation, keep destroying our environment, and keep creating jobs that pollute our ecosystem for the sake of keeping the economy going and satisfy our thirst for more stuff to consume. Big corporations, self-interest groups, and some politicians keep trying to make us believe with their nice advertisement and big speech that everything is all good. But we all know that in reality, we are digging our graves. There is no more North America to be discovered on this planet. We need to care for what is left. Trying to steal what's left of the First Nation Reserve and relaxing our environmental law so that mine company and land developer can have their way is unacceptable. And keep destroying the indigenous culture with negligence and illegal law is disgraceful. Any wise person can see that we need to change our behavior. Destructive projects like the tar sand, which is polluting our ecosystem and has already destroyed the life of the Lubicon Cree Nation, has to stop. Warming up our atmosphere with carbon dioxide, being showered with acid rain, breathing polluted air, and all that contaminated water from oil sand, from non-organic farming, and from mining, it's making its way everywhere. This is not healthy at all. We also got to stop destructive projects like running underground oil pipe all over the place. And we got to stop destroying the inside of the earth by fracking it. Any good scientist who doesn't get paid by oil and mining company will tell you that fracking is just plain stupid. We keep burning fossil fuel, use deadly nuclear power, and keep dumping over 80,000 chemical compounds all over the place. We keep altering our food to the point where our body can cope with it, and we're all getting sicker and sicker. If we don't change, we will need some very big hospital, and we will spend billions more on drugs and medical services. Organic and local farming, changing of diet, public transport, green energy, and alternating current technology like the one Nikola Tesla invented, and even UFO technology are things we need to invest in if we are serious about creating a healthy future. Bringing down our cost of living, transforming our social system, sharing the work, shopping less, and taking the time to enjoy life, family, and friends would also be very helpful. Our First Nation friends wish to modernize all those old treaties. Perhaps us too, we should look at changing our own political system. Getting rid of the Senate and finding new ways to work all together would be very beneficial. We can no longer afford to waste our time, money, and human resources by playing the game of my gang is better and bigger than your gang. It's time to unify and stop creating division among us. It's time to care for the environment and care equally for everyone, including our 4 million of disadvantaged citizens. And it's time to care for indigenous people. Having gone through reconciliation talk with our First Nation friend was a good starting point. It feels good to say sorry for all the suffering we have caused you. Sorry for having taken over the land and put you in reserve. Sorry for killing all the buffalo. And sorry for trying to starve you to death with food ratio and try to kill you with contaminated blanket. Sorry for not allowing you to have your spiritual ceremony and for keeping you locked up in those reserves for so long. It is still hard for us to face the fact that we have wiped out 90% of your population over time, which amount to about 3 million people. We are so sorry that 40% of your children die and that 60% of young girls were sterilized in our residential school and that so many were sexually mistreated. And sorry for having manipulated Indian history and for still not teaching the truth to our children. So much needs to be done. The majority of First Nation people are still very badly mistreated and suffer greatly due to poverty, lack of food, inadequate housing, and lack of health care and essential services, and more than 123 communities in despair. There is a lot of premature death and suicide due to lack of health service and lack of adequate social infrastructure, which create a very depressive environment in and off reserve. Many ends up trying to alleviate their suffering in all kinds of ways, and the level of frustration is very difficult for many to handle and cause sickness, anger, violence, crime, and depression. There is a high number of heart attack, lung disease, and stroke due to all those bad living conditions. We invest millions of dollars feeding them pharmaceutical drugs, but we don't invest to eliminate the cause of those suffering. There are still many hundreds of indigenous children that are taken away from their family by social services. Our justice system in Canada strives by arresting and prosecuting the Aboriginal population. Our jails are filled with a majority of First Nation people, and it's costing us a fortune, but we hesitate to invest money in First Nation needs, training, adequate salary, and job opportunity. The situation in regard to murder and sexual assault against Indigenous women is also unacceptable. And having the police dropping off people in the countryside in the cold of winter for them to die, it's not good. And having jail personnel torturing inmates and watch them die, it's very sad. The Métis, the Inuit, and the First Nation people need to be brought up to the same level of comfort and service that any other Canadian are enjoying. They need to heal and continue to prosper. The Indigenous people also are aware that they may have some irregularity in the running of their affair in a few communities. But this is nothing compared to what's going on in our own Canadian political landscape. Let's not forget that most of our entire budget for Indian affairs goes to bureaucrat, judge, and lawyer. And the way the federal and provincial government oblige them to manage their affair is very different from the way we do business in our community. First Nation people want us to respect their treaty right, and they want Canada to respect the United Nations Declaration on the Right of Indigenous People, who clearly state that all Indigenous people have the right to self-determination, they have the right to own and control their land, territory, and resources, and they have the right to free, prior, and informed consent, among other things. They don't need new legislation imposed on them illegally by the upper government. Our First Nation people love and cherish their culture as much as we love and cherish ours. We both appreciate each other's diversity, and we all love this place that we call planet Earth. This is our environment. This is our home, and we need to take care of it. I hope that as a representative of our community, you will consider writing to Mr. Stephen Harper and to Mr. Bradwell and ask them to respect our First Nation treaty right, and to respect the United Nations Declaration on the Right of Indigenous People. And I wish you will also consider asking them to care about the health of our environment. We need to find the strength to change those things that need to be changed. Together, we need to transform this beautiful country of ours into a wonderful new kingdom. Thank you.
Councillor Mitchell?
Again, I don't have a question. I'm prepared to make the motion to receive and file, but just in comment, I want to express thanks to Mr. Labonte for bringing forward broad concerns on issues that I certainly personally share concern about. They're obviously beyond the jurisdiction of us as a governing body, but we can certainly initiate inquiries, and I think we recognize that our community is involved and has a stake in these issues. There is leadership by the Aboriginal community locally to tie into the national movement, the Idle No More. In fact, there was a rally and demonstration this evening and a teach-in on resource issues. So our community is part of it, and this is a municipal forum. It's appropriate to raise these issues. I don't see anything for specific action tonight, but that doesn't mean we can't address some of them in future. So I move receive and file, and thanks for being here.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your consideration.